views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Straight ahead on this edition of Perspectives, we introduce you to the award-winning writer and composer in the film Harriet. We'll meet him up next with Perspectives with yours truly, Daren Jaime.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
What's on your mind? What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective, which shines a light. Cause it might make a difference in someone else's life.
Make a difference.
What's your perspective?
Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
What's your perspective?
And hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Perspectives. I am Daren Jaime, and of course, we thank you for joining us. And as always, you can catch Perspectives live here on BronxNet's Channel 67 every Tuesday at 8:30 with a new episode. And then, of course, if you're watching, you can check us out on Channel 67, Verizon Fios, that would be Channel 33, or anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. And of course, on all of our social media sites, BronxNet, and then also Perspectives. Well, coming up on this edition of Perspectives, we're talking about the movie Harriet and A Special Young Man. Well, released at the end of 2019, Harriet the movie tells the tale of an American hero and freedom fighter, Harriet Tubman, and her escape from slavery. And just as powerful as the film itself is the anthem of the film Stand Up, sung by the film's lead star, Cynthia Erivo. And joining me now on the show is the writer and composer of that song, which is Joshua Campbell. He's a singer, a songwriter, composer who currently hails from Harlem, but originally from South Carolina. He will definitely let you know that. 2017, he won the South Car Jazz Festival's inaugural composition competition. His piece, Sing Out, March On, a protest song written during the height of the Black Lives Matter movement. It raised significant funds for the SPLC and also was performed to honor, was performed to honor Congressman John Lewis at Harvard's 2018 commencement. And he's also a part of the Golden Globe Award, nominated for the film Harriet, Critics' Choice Award, nominated for the film Harriet. And yeah, for those of you who want to know a little bit more about Harriet and the sound, let's take a look.
You hear freedom calling, calling me to answer. Gonna keep on keeping on. I can feel it in my bones. Early in the morning, before the sun begins to shine, we're gonna start moving towards that separating line.
And there you hear the song, and now we have the writer and composer, Joshua Campbell, here on Perspectives, and good to have you, bro.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, glad to be here.
Having me.
Listen, let's talk about this here. First of all, to hear it. You know, while the song was going on, we saw a little music, putting it there. What's it like to hear your music?
It's interesting. Still a little bit surreal to hear it on this level. It's funny because I'm not really a keyboard player. I write and compose as a vocalist. So like the journey of me even being a songwriter was sort of this journey of learning, like, yes, what you do is composition, and like, yes, you are a writer. So to just hear it this early on this scale is like more than I expected to hear.
Right.
Yeah.
Here you are, a writer and composer. You end up with writing and composing for Harriet. For somebody who doesn't know, how did this all come about?
Oh, it's a long and beautiful story. So I think you heard about the piece that I wrote a few years ago. I guess I first wrote the song Sing Out, March On in 2014 probably, when I was a sophomore or junior in college. And we ended up coming back and performing that. So when we recorded that song, we ended up coming back and performing it for Congressman John Lewis, who received an honorary degree in 2018. And so that video from that performance sort of gained some traction. Then sort of it was on the radar of the composer of the score of the film, Terrence Blanchard, who's a wonderful, wonderful person. And he sort of flagged it with the team there, and they reached out to me to sort of to demo something. And then there was a process of co-writing with Cynthia, who also sings the song. And then we ended up with the stand-up that you hear. Yeah.
Ever any thought that it would be where it is today? I mean, we're talking about the Golden Globe Awards being nominated, then you got the Critics' Choice Award nomination. You know, you put your work out there, you want it to go, but did you imagine it going like this?
No, I really did not, especially just sort of how unexpectedly the opportunity and the process came about. I was just focused on, you know, especially when I got together with a friend of mine, Gabe Fox-Peck, who produced that first sort of demo. We were just concerned with making something that sounded good, and that would sort of honor Harriet Tubman. And we knew we had something that was good, especially as the process went along, but I didn't think it would reach this sort of scale of success, or you know, I didn't anticipate that it would. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. And so talk about, I mean, you've been out there now, and as I said, I mentioned a couple of awards, but you also got a couple other ones that you won as well.
Yeah, so we won the Hollywood Music and Media Awards a couple of months ago. And then while I was out, the Society of Composers and Lyricists had its inaugural award ceremony, so we won Best Original Song for Visual Media. I think it's the full title of the award. And that award was really special because it was handed to me by Arthur Hamilton, who wrote the standard Cry Me a River, which that was sort of surreal as somebody who, you know, kind of came up singing jazz and that sort of stuff. But it was an award from a group of people who are like composers and lyricists and people who write songs. So that one like was special.
Yeah. And so to get to this place, a little bit about you. How'd you get here to the place? How long have you been writing, composing?
Well, I'm a singer first. I'm a vocalist first. I always foreground with that. So I've been doing that since I was yay high, as they say. And I guess I started writing in earnest probably undergrad. I took a jazz harmony course, and that's sort of when I think I wrote the first sort of song that I could call a song. And I was like, okay, I'm proud of this. And then sort of that was the beginning of me having a sort of, you know, not always, you know, just writing, but a consistent songwriting practice. I'm always sort of piecing together ideas for stuff. So that's when that really started, when I started, you know, in earnest focusing on the sort of songwriting side of things.
And so as you put a song together, walk us through that, because people talk about, you know, I'm a composer, I'm a writer, right? What goes into your writing, and especially in this Harriet film, what was your thought process?
Well, for the process, I think for me is different every time, and also so my answer is different every time. But for the Harriet song, I was on a deadline, and it was the middle of finals period, because I'm a full-time student also. So I was like, okay, Lord knows I need a song. And it really started from sort of a spiritual place. Like, I need a song. Somewhere, somebody, something, send me some inspiration for a song. So I think it started with me with that hum at the beginning of the song that you hear. That was the first idea I had. And this doesn't always happen, but I think the other parts of the song just followed in order. I had the hum, and then I had a melody for the verse, then the lyric sort of started, the first version of a lyric started to come through. And then a chorus sort of fell into place. I know that's sort of a weird, non-concrete term to put it in, but this one really just flowed, I think. And it doesn't always go that way. Sometimes some things come before other things. Some things about like the feel of it and that sort of thing only came when I sat down to like, record its first version or whatever. But yeah, the process really just, I try to follow the ideas as they come and see where they take me.
We'll come back and talk a little bit more with Joshua Campbell, our guest here in the studio. Talk a little bit about Harriet, how he wrote and composed that, but he also has some other great work that's out there. Going to introduce you to that, and then find a little bit more about some inspirations, some influences. And if you're a person that wants to write and compose, what about you? How do you do that? Well, we're going to ask him. He'll give you the answer. Be right back with more perspectives right after this. And if you're just joining us, welcome back to Perspectives. Daren Jaime here with you. Our guest in studio, Joshua Campbell. Joshua's the award-winning writer and composer of the song Stand Up on the new film that's out, Harriet Tubman, about the Harriet Tubman movie. And yes, award-winning, and glad to have him sharing with us. And you're sharing a little bit about how it all comes to play beforehand. But influences, right? Every person's influenced. So I know you have a jazz influence. And we both know a church influence as well.
Right.
So
right.
Which one came first?
Church came first.
Don't say it just because we church it.
No,
okay,
church came first. Sang my first song in church. I remember it vividly, standing in front of the church when I was probably 4 or 5 years old.
Knees knocking.
Yeah, microphone bigger than I was.
Yeah.
And that was like the first sound sort of that I grew up in. My brother, I have an older brother, he played a lot of classical, like a lot of classic gospel, and also Motown and that sort of stuff. So I was hearing those sounds. My parents are children of, I guess, the 70s, 80s. So like that's when they were coming into young adulthood. So those sorts of sounds. And then whenever I sort of entered school, I played saxophone for about 7 years. And sort of that and listening to voices like Ella Fitzgerald at first, and Sarah Vaughan at first, and then into Carmen McRae and like Betty Carter, and then later on like Andy Bay, and all those great like vocal jazz artists. Those became sort of what I listened to and studied as a vocalist. So.
Yeah. Born and raised in Sherrall, South Carolina.
Sherrall, South Carolina.
Little place.
Hometown of Dizzy Gillespie.
Right.
Yeah.
How much is Dizzy influence?
Growing up, that was that was our claim to fame.
Right.
So Dizzy really gave us something to be proud of, and I don't think I really appreciated him deeply until later in life, when I was like, wow, this man, you know, was such an ambassador, had such like a musical sort of heart and voice. He was like friends with everybody. Everybody played with him. And yeah, and just I also just love his music and I listen to it. So
Yeah, yeah. I want to talk to you about turning 15 on the road to freedom.
Turning 15, yes.
Yeah.
So Turning 15 on the Road to Freedom is a musical about the youngest marcher from Selma to Montgomery during the 1965 march. Her name was Linda Blackman, now Linda Blackman Lowry. She's still alive. She was born in 1950. So she was 14 years old when she started the march. She turned 15 as she was marching to Montgomery. She, you know, survived Bloody Sunday, and it started as sort of a book, an autobiography of her experiences. Then it turned into a one-woman show. And then it became this play that they decided was going to be a musical, incorporating sort of a lot of the freedom songs and protest songs, and also spirituals and gospel music sort of from that time. And it was at that point of the production that actually my life was sort of a web of people and things. The family of the co-producer of Stand Up was connected with the producers of Turning 15, so they knew about Sing Our March On. They knew about sort of my work in that type of music, and they brought me on to music direct this piece, which also uses the song Sing Our March On. And it just, unfortunately, it just had its New York engagement this past weekend, but it does tour the country, schools and communities and that sort of thing, teaching people about sort of voter rights and the struggle for voting rights in the U.S.
You do a lot of time management, right? Because you talked a little bit about getting that call, and you're on deadline for the movie Harriet, and you're in school, going to seminary, Union, down there in Harlem. And,
Yes.
And I know seminary is not easy, Lord, we know that, right? But
It's
how'd you crunch out the whole seminary, getting your final season, trying to make that thing happen as far as getting this written? A lot of work in between, huh?
Yeah, I do my best stuff under pressure, which is a blessing and a curse. But I do my best stuff under pressure. But also, it's helpful to be grounded, sort of, in a discipline. And for me, it's a spiritual discipline of, like, you know, whether it's church going or consistent prayer or whatever it is that sort of keeps me grounded. That keeps me from week to week. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and a lot of the things, a lot of opportunities that have arisen, you know, I'm grateful for, absolutely. But I didn't expect them to come, especially during this 3 years. I sort of devoted these 3 years to spiritual formation, to like grad school. I'm gonna be a seminarian. I'm gonna keep my head in the book. But then all this stuff happened when I moved to New York, and I knew I wanted to be in New York because this is where the stuff was happening. So,
Right.
you know.
Welcome.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's how it happens. I mean, you do your thing, and people tell you, I'm a waitress, I'm an actress. You know, you got all that. You know, you got both of them balancing. Have you met a lot of people in that you know, double crashing is what we call it?
Oh, absolutely. Everybody does everything. Yeah, I don't think there's.
You can't be in New York without a hustle.
Right. Yeah. Nobody. I haven't met too many people without a side hustle or without, you know, 2 whole careers even.
Right.
So,
right.
yeah.
Well, you're balancing 2 whole careers. Joshua Campbell, our guest here in the studio. Coming back, we're gonna get some tips. What do you want to do if you want to enter this as a young person? You know, he's transcended his career while he's in grad school, but then maybe somebody else says, I want to write, I want to compose. We'll get some tips coming up in a few. Continue our conversation with Joshua Campbell. And before the break, we're talking a little bit about if I'm a young person, right? And I'm thinking about doing what you do, and everybody has these artistic talents that they want to just flesh out. What advice do you give?
Keep making stuff, keep doing stuff. It's not lost on me, I think, that I've been blessed and privileged to have certain networks and to know people. But I was talking with somebody about this recently because of, and it's kind of trite to say, but because of social media, anyone, really seriously, if you're doing something good and you put it out there, there's a chance the right people will see it. That'll be able to take you to somewhere that you might want to go. But you really have to keep making stuff and sort of, not necessarily keep your head to the ground, but keep your feet on the ground and keep them moving. For me as a songwriter, as I was saying, it was a journey because, everybody else plays 7 instruments and, I'm just a vocalist at the end of the day. That's my bread and butter. But I had mentors who stepped into my life. One of my professors, Vijay Iyer, a dear mentor of mine, Imani Uzuri, both of them incredible musicians who were like, yes, you're a composer. Yes, you can do this. You can step into this sort of identity as a musician. So having people affirm you in that way is a lot more important, even than the awards.
Right. So when you look at where you are right now, and that's great accomplishments, right? We're talking Golden Globe, Critics' Choice, Society Composers and Lyricists. You say to yourself, what's next, right? So what's next?
Well, I go back in the end of next week to do some music direction on Turn 15. I start classes next week. That's what's immediately next. But I think in terms of, the 5-year, 10-year, as they say, I really want to keep doing this. I didn't know it was unsure to me whether or not it was possible for me to do what I do now. And now that I know that it's possible, I would like to keep doing it. And by which I mean, I work, I guess you would say, part-time in ministry, teaching kids and doing sort of education work in the church. And then I also sing and write and do music direction. And I don't want to put any of those things down, to be honest. I want to keep doing this. I have a friend who follows a similar path who, he's an ordained minister, but he's also a vocalist, Art Fleming. And I was having a conversation with him, and he was like, I don't know what it looks like to be somebody who does all these things. And he was like, but I realized it looks like me. So I keep reminding myself, my wildest dreams or whatever I think is possible or impossible just looks like me.
Right, right. Working with Cynthia Erivo, talk about that.
It was an incredible experience. She's such a star. She's someone who really knows her instrument, and it's a rare blessing to work with people who really know their instrument, because we choose singing the song. So really knows her instrument, what it's capable of, what to demand from it, what to demand from the process. And she it was great to work with her as somebody who had really stepped into Harriet, because we were writing this song for and about Harriet Tubman, and that was the objective. So she had intimacy with that made her writing really keen, and her contributions just really sharp. So it was incredible. Yeah.
See things happening in the future together?
Potentially. Yeah.
It's got a lot going on.
There's a lot. Yeah.
What's the biggest thing that you've learned in this whole process?
Ask questions. You don't know until you know. And I came into this very green, very fresh. I am rather young, even though sometimes I don't feel like it. But it's okay to ask questions and to learn and to make mistakes and to stumble and to say.
You jumped on my last question I got real before we wrap up. Biggest mistake?
Biggest mistake, not asking questions.
Yeah.
Not asking enough questions, and being afraid that I didn't know the questions to ask. But there's no such thing as a dumb question.
Yeah, it is. Just gotta ask the question.
Right.
Well, thank you for answering my questions.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Here.
I really
Joshua
appreciate
Campbell.
it.
Good to have you here on Perspectives. Come on back, all right?
I will.
All right.
Anytime.
All right, Joshua Campbell, our guest here on Perspectives, and that about wraps it up for us here on the show. We want to thank you for watching. And of course, you can see us every week here on Channel 67, Verizon Fios Channel 33, or anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. For all of us here on the Set of Perspectives, I am Daren Jaime saying take care, God bless, stay safe, and be sure to share your perspective with somebody else. You never know, it just might make a difference in somebody else's life. We'll see you soon.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
Express what's on your mind. What's on your mind?
Let 'em know. Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, just
Bye, Janet. It's nice seeing you again. You look good, girl. Just let me know what I can do to help.
Well, to help me, she'd have to help every day. Every hour, every ouch, every time my wife calls for help. I mean, maybe she could help me make her lunch. But the crust, all the crust has to be cut off the corners. She could help me run to the doctor for the 5th time this week. Help me with the specialist and the second opinions and the painful paperwork about paperwork. Help me deal with how hard it is seeing my wife's name on so much paperwork. But this is on me. I'm the only one who can do this, like this, for her. Besides,
Take care.
we will. Janet doesn't like her cooking anyway.
Find support for your strength. Visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community.